Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Chee-Tash. My name is Chris, and today we're going over Look Out on Parenting here, a survival guide for the single parent. We are so close. We are on life lessons 9 through 12, the last 4 lessons here of part 3 of Ted's book. Let's just jump right into it, guys. What did we talk about last time? Well, we talked about life lessons 5 through 8. Namely, dealing with the first bullet point here, shyness, and what Ted says about shyness. What did Ted say about shyness? He said that shyness is not, it's kind of something that parents have to just recognize in their child and not try to get rid of it or not try to address it. It's more like something that is just very unique to a child. It's like a child's personality. And you can try to change it, but oftentimes face resistance, just like, how many times, like me, I was probably pretty shy. I think I was pretty shy as a kid. When your parents force you into like social interactions, you end up just resisting it even more. So Ted says here, shyness is kind of like an inborn characteristic, which I don't know if it's inborn or if it's learned, because it definitely, there are kids who are shy, there are kids who are not shy, and there's brothers and sisters, siblings within the same family who are shy, some aren't, and yet they have the same parents, so what's going on there? But you have to learn to appreciate a child's shyness, basically. And eventually they work out of it on their own. But appreciate it because it's something that's unique to your child. And as Ted points out in that chapter, shy kids tend to be kind of creative, even though they are soft-spoken or, try to defer or but avoid social interaction. Maybe they're more creative. Maybe they are of a higher intelligence in other areas. So just something to keep in mind there. How about brothers and sisters? Brothers and sisters, mainly Ted talked in this chapter about like the respect that your kids should have for each other. Else, if there is a disrespect and if it is kind of one-sided, like one brother always beats up the other brother, then if it's not addressed as a kid, when they're children, it's going to manifest itself when they are adults. And maybe not in the form of like punching, wrestling around, not as adults, but in other areas. Maybe the one brother takes advantage of the other brother in terms of like finance, or I don't know what else. Finance would be like the most applicable. I would say that's like the number one thing that comes to mind. So just watch out for that. You should be watching over your brothers and sisters. You gotta learn to watch out for each other and have each other's backs, and just have a relationship of respect in regards to your other siblings. Is basically what Ted is saying there. Remember, Ted always would. I don't want to say always, but whenever. I forget which one of his daughters were firstborn, and then when another child came along, he would always say, "Hey, this is your sister. Your sister is coming into this world." So it kind of gives them like an ownership, and they are just as invested in that child as the parents are. Misbehaving in public. There are really 2 reasons why this happens, and Ted discusses this in this chapter. One, it's either the parent is so oblivious to it, they've gotten so used to it that they are oblivious to it, right? It's just become normal, or they recognize that it's happening and they just think that if they wait long enough that the child will stop. Now, both instances are not very good. And this is why we've talked about before, going back to Teddy's Tips. I think it was Teddy's Tips, the first part of the book. Whatever you tolerate in public will also have, whatever you tolerate in private, that's what will also happen in public. So you need to address those issues in private if you don't want them happening in public. And even when they do happen in public, you have to be ready to modify some behavior. You have to be ready to, if needed, remove your child from that public space. Because think about if you were on the other end and some other kid was crying, you would probably be a little bit annoyed. So when you're in those public spaces, don't tolerate that misbehavior. Address it. And where does it start? Starts at home. Potty training. Ted, in this chapter, talked about setting the example. So literally, if your child needs to go, then they go with you when you go. And they have their own little toddler toilet next to yours in the bathroom, so that they start to understand what it's like to be potty trained, use the toilet versus constantly depending on their diaper. And he also brings up in this chapter, if there are instances of bedwetting, do what you can first. So like for, when I go to bed, I don't drink water. I try not to drink water close to bedtime, because then I know I'll be waking up in the middle of the night having to use the bathroom. So take steps like that. But if there's still a problem, then default to seeking a physician for that if it becomes a problem. So that's what we talked about last time. That's just a little general overview. Today, and the last 4 lessons that we're going over, Off to school. Remember this, guys? We had a whole chapter on the drop-off in part 2. And the drop-off could be pretty much anything, but usually, the place where you're going to be dropping them off the most in this time period is going to be a daycare provider or school. Those are going to be just the number 1 and number 2 places where you go to drop off your toddler, right? And Ted talked a lot about how important this was. He also talked about how important this was in the babysitting chapter we did a couple videos ago. Videos ago, we went over that, on how important it is for your toddler to get to know different social environments. So with different authority figures, in the authority figure being a babysitter, just getting used to different people watching over them, basically, and not just defaulting to your parents, grandparents, etc. Because that sets the tone for the different teachers they're going to see in a school day, the different managers they're going to see later on in life, the different professors they're going to have at college, etc. So you're getting your child acclimated to being in different social environments with different kids in each class, different teachers for your classes, maybe not as a toddler, because I think one teacher kind of teaches multiple subjects, but you're getting them acclimated to that. And also as a parent, you're getting used to not being in constant control over your child's world. So what does that mean? That means that your child at some point is going to have to fend for themselves and learn to make decisions on their own. You're not going to be there to always make decisions for them, right? You're not going to be there to give them that supervision. So school is like the ultimate place for that. You're there for whatever, how long is school? 6 to 8 hours, something like that. But they are in this place where all of a sudden you are not overseeing their world. You're not having a direct impact on their world. And they're going to have to just basically figure things out for themselves, figure out scenarios for themselves. And when they come back, and at dinner time, we talked about this at dinner time, or on the pickup, as well as dinner time, I think. But yes, on the pickup, you have your child give a review of the day. And that's where you can kind of find out how their day went, what's going on at school, anything extracurricular happen at school, and you can get a glimpse of it and kind of see what they're thinking and give them some lessons, some things to do, not to do maybe. Let's continue on. Being away from your toddler, kind of going hand in hand with the off to school thing. But number one, the parents have to be comfortable with this first. We learned this in the drop off as well, how your child is going to see the drop off how you see it. So if you make it a big deal by saying, oh, I'm going to miss you so much, hugging and kissing them, not wanting to let go, they're going to feel that same way. But if it's super quick, hey, see you, champ, and then you're out of there, don't look back, just walk straight to your car, they're going to have a little more confidence about it. But you have to dictate that from your behavior. You have to dictate, hey, everything's going to be okay, and I'm coming back. That's the important thing. I'm coming back. I thought it was kind of cool. If you guys look at the fourth bullet point, I thought it was kind of cool that Ted had this point on leaving something with your child so that your child knows that you're coming back for that thing. So I think Ted, like whenever he would go on business trips, he described giving his daughter, I forget what it was, if it was like a necklace or a watch, something like that, but it just, or maybe it was a stuffed animal. So that way the child knows, oh, okay, daddy gave me this and daddy's coming back for this, right? So it puts them a little bit at ease, But being away from your toddler, the world does not revolve around the toddler. The world doesn't revolve around you. And there's going to be times where, and your toddler has to know this too, and everybody's got to learn this as a kid, is it doesn't revolve around you. Don't take things personally. Remember from 4 agreements, the situation is not going to adjust to you sometimes, right? If you're a football player, right, and you get called in, like let's say you're a backup starting quarterback, out with a concussion or something, and you get called in, the situation is not going to adjust to you being not warm, never having played a game. Oh, they're going to take it easy. No, sometimes you have to adjust to the situation. And that's what everybody's got to do. Right? Everybody's got to do that, from your toddler to you as the parent. Just because you are not there now does not mean that you will never come back. We kind of talked about that earlier. That's the third bullet point there. But yeah, that's going to do it for that slide. Your toddler is not responsible for your ego. 100%. 100%. I remember this was one of, we talked about this in Teddy's tips. A toddler's concept of right or wrong starts and ends with you. A lot of things start and end with the parent. That's going to kind of dictate how the child acts. If the child misses you on the drop-off, right? It's going to depend on how much of a big deal you make that drop-off. And the toddler not being responsible for your ego, you are responsible for your ego. You're responsible for your actions. So you can do things for your toddler, and they may not turn out the way that you want them to turn out, right? And your toddler is not responsible for that. You perform those actions thinking that you're going to get this result. And you did it because of your toddler, but it's not your toddler's fault for it, right? It's like, I don't know, like maybe you're super late to something because it took so long to get out the door. That should fall on you. You're the parent. You should have prepared. You could have gotten stuff ready the morning or the night before, the morning before your toddlers woke up. You could have been better prepared and explaining this situation to your toddler, as much as they can handle. And it's kind of hard to explain things to a toddler. We've talked about the time difference between toddlers and adults, but it starts and ends with you. It's your ego. You're responsible for it. So what are your core beliefs as a parent? What are your core beliefs as your parent? Your core beliefs as a parent should start with being your core belief as a parent. Hey, yes, I am a parent. I am the parent of this child. And I'm going to do what's best, my absolute best, and that's all you can say. Again, going back to the 4 agreements, always do your best. You'll never be disappointed because you did your best. And yeah, the magnitude is going to change from day to day, but you're always doing your best. What more can you ask for? Crime and punishment. Crime and punishment. Here, Ted talks about the timeout. Timeout should be a well-defined period of isolation. It should be away from social interaction. And again, refrain from using their bedroom as a timeout, because then they're going to see the bedroom as a negative place. It's going to be hard to go there and fall asleep at night. Start with a definite rule of what is and isn't timeout. Your toddler should know this. Both you and your toddler should know this. There should be no questions about it. And it would kind of help to have a timer there too, so that everybody knows how long you are in timeout for, including your child too. It shouldn't be like so long, because again, children and adults see time differently, but it should be long enough that they have time to think, long enough that time to calm down. Don't let them just scamper. I think that should be scamper. Sorry, guys. Scamper off when it buzzes. Don't let them do that. Keep them there and have that conversation before they leave timeout. Hey, here's why you're in timeout. Please don't do that again. I still love you. Off you go. But don't just let them beat you to the punch and all of a sudden run off as soon as that timer buzzes. They should know why they're in timeout, a definitive rule of what timeout is, and away from social interaction so that they can think about their actions. Boom, guys. Thank you so much for listening. Really, really appreciate it. We just got one more video on parenting here. I'm going to do a really, really short video because there's actually one last chapter, very, very short chapter in Ted's book. But it's really, really short. So I'm going to do a short video on it. It'll come out within a couple days of the release of this one. If you guys have any questions, please leave them down in the comments. And I am also going to do a new book announcement. We're going to do a little pivot, a little bit of a pivot. I'm excited to announce it. Please check out the blog. We did a whole series on part 2 of the book, Getting Through the Day. And I plan on doing more blog posts with the new book. Thank you guys so much. My name is Chris. This has been Chee-Tash. Take care.